Licensed games have always been a mixed bag, and maybe that's even being a bit generous to them. Most big TV shows or movies will also have some sort of small tie-in game or just a game based off the property itself. Only the real ones played the Ratatouille video game. The Simpsons has had a lot of video games. The beat-em-up arcade game, the Simpsons game, and the Simpsons Road Rage are some that come to mind. The Simpsons Road Rage was basically just a reskinned version of Crazy Taxi, just with Simpsons assets, and so much to the point where Sega, the company that published Crazy Taxi, actually filed a lawsuit against Radical Entertainment over the game. But anyways, Road Rage, as I just mentioned, was developed by a studio known as Radical Entertainment. After Road Rage had come out, they decided not to make a direct sequel to The Simpsons Road Rage. However, they took a lot of cues from this game, which is how we got what is considered by many to be the best Simpsons video game of all time, and one of my favorite video games of all time. This is The Simpsons Hit and Run. Being born in 2004, obviously I didn't have this game when it first came out, but I inherited my sister's GameCube. At this point, we're probably talking 2010, 2011, she just never played it anymore, but one of the games that she had on there was, of course, The Simpsons Hit and Run. I used to be an avid Simpsons watcher. I had the first 8 seasons on DVD, and let's say 5 years ago, I would PVR episodes and watch them when I got home from school. Of course, I'm not one of those people who can tell you every little thing about the show, or hell, where most of the in-game references come from, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not fond of the show or don't have fond memories of it. Now, if you're watching this, that means you obviously read the title, which means you know that I think this game is a masterpiece. Admittedly, I do have a lot of nostalgia for this game, as I've been playing it for a long time, as I've said. However, every time I go back to this game, I enjoy every single playthrough, so I don't really think that it's just my nostalgia making me fond of the game. I used to not be able to articulate my reasoning as to why I enjoy the game so much, but now I can. Without further ado, let's get right into The Simpsons Hit and Run. When you start a new game, you are shown a cutscene where Homer is watching TV, and a commercial of Krusty endorsing a new cola, Buzz Cola, that he states is not poisonous to anyone that they know of, and has an ingredient that not even the FDA is on top of yet. So already, we're off to a great marketing campaign for this cola. Homer being Homer decides that the best course of action is to go to the Quickie Mart and get some, because the FDA isn't going to be on his ass if he gets it. This mission, along with the rest of level 1, serve as a tutorial level, which the game itself actually references, so that the player can get used to the game, its mechanics, controls, structure, etc. As for what you're actually doing, level 1 starts with Homer running some pretty basic errands, like the mission we just talked about, bringing Lisa her science project, collecting from Flanders the missing items that for some reason Homer has scattered around Springfield, and destroying Mr. Smithers' car so that he won't get caught being late for work. You know, pretty standard stuff. Level 1 is pretty light on story for the most part. It has some story elements that are introduced towards the middle and end of the level, but overall not very heavy at all. As I said before, it's pretty much teaching the player to get used to the controls and game structure, which we are now going to talk about. The Simpsons Hit and Run has 7 levels, each with their own set of missions. You start in level 1 playing as Homer, and after completing all 7 missions, 8 if you count the tutorial mission, you're done with this level and you move on to the next. Each level sees you playing as a different member of the Simpsons cast, and the order is as follows: Homer, Bart, Lisa, Marge, Apu, Bart again, and Homer again. There are 6 types of missions in this game. Depending on the mission, you might be collecting items, platforming, destroying vehicles, chasing vehicles, evading vehicles, or racing vehicles. Yeah, it's very vehicle-centric here. For the most part, these 6 aspects are mixed together in some way, like in level 1 mission 6, Bone Storm Storm, where you have to ram this truck and collect the items that are falling out of it, or the mission where Marge is running around collecting cola cans. Most missions have you collecting items in some way, but one of the missions I just mentioned is mixed with the destroying elements element, while one of them is mixed with platforming. A lot of missions also have different phases that mix the different aspects in a different way than how I just mentioned. Like the mission where you help Cletus collect a roadkill in the first phase of the mission, and then in the next phase of the mission you have to avoid Apu. Or the mission where you have to collect the Trail of Donuts in order to find Chief Wiggum and then follow him. Also, just about every mission in this game is a timed one. The only ones where there's no time limit is either during a race or when you have to follow a vehicle, since, you know, during a race there's no point since the other car is basically your timer, and during tailing segments you can't really time it because your only objective is to stay within distance of the vehicle. There is a complaint surrounding this game's mission structure, but I will get back to that when it's more appropriate to talk about it. You're also taken through 3 different areas over the course of the game: the suburbs of Springfield, seen in levels 1, 4, and 7, downtown Springfield, seen in levels 2 and 5, and the harbor area? I'm not exactly sure what to call this area, but this area is seen in levels 3 and 6. There are enough differences made to the levels when they're reused so that it just doesn't feel like the same thing, like Burns' mansion opening up in level 4, or a new part of the power plant opening up in level 7. Level 1 starts introducing some story elements towards the middle, as it shows you that something mysterious is happening in Springfield between the WASP cameras, and eventually Homer finds out that there are mysterious black vans driving across Springfield. Homer follows one of these black vans back to Mr. Burns' mansion, where he then asks Marge for help. But she's more concerned with getting a new violent video game, Bone Storm, off the streets because fuck video games, peace and sharing is the new wave. After destroying a bunch of copies of this game, Homer then races Smithers. Wait a second, didn't we destroy Smithers' car 4 missions ago? How the fuck did he get another one? Whatever. Anyways, Homer races Smithers back to Mr. Burns' mansion before he can be warned that Homer is onto him, to where Homer then confronts Mr. Burns, only to find out that the black vans were pizza delivery vans, and that Mr. Burns had nothing to do with what was happening around Springfield. Ending level 1. Enter level 2. You are now playing as Bart in an entirely new setting, downtown Springfield. Bart is trying to get his hands on the new Bone Storm video game, and he skipped school to try and do so. And because of this, Principal Skinner is on his ass, so he has to lose him. When he gets to the try-and save to buy the game, he's told by Jimbo that he got the last copy and that some crazy lady destroyed the rest. Sure wondered who that was. Anyways, Bart goes to Kearney to try to get his hands on the game, but Kearney says, fuck video games, illegal fireworks are the wave. He collects a bunch of sets of fireworks and evades Chief Wiggum, and guess what? That's the last you're hearing of the fireworks for the whole level. I feel like now is a pretty good time to start talking about the controls and mechanics of the Simpsons Hit Run. One comparison that is often made to this game's mechanics, and I guess its mission structure as well, is the Grand Theft Auto series, and I guess this is sorta true in a sense. You go around in vehicles and at times go on foot completing missions. In that case, yeah, it's a lot like the Grand Theft Auto games. However, Grand Theft Auto has a far greater emphasis on its combat mechanics, with all the weapons and also its melee combat, and also the differences in how the notoriety system works. In the Grand Theft Auto games, whenever you commit a crime in front of a police officer or commit a bunch of crimes in succession, you'll get a star added to your notoriety level. The more stars you get, the more cops will chase you more intensely. In the Simpsons Hit and Run, doing things like kicking a person, running someone over, hitting a street pole, will fill up this meter on the bottom right, and this is called your hit and run meter. When it fills up, hit and run mode is activated, where the player is then chased by the police. If the player is busted by the police, they lose 50 coins. It starts by the player being chased by just 1 police car for the first 3 levels, then starting in level 4, the player is then chased by 2 cops. This isn't too bad, since the cops are pretty easy to avoid if you just keep driving and don't continue filling up the meter. If the meter decreases enough and you get away from the cops, they'll stay off your tail completely. You can also completely break this system, as there are certain areas where the police cannot get into, or you can enter a building and just wait for the meter to run out that way. Where this can really get in the way is during missions, especially during the ones in the late game. The mission where you have to destroy the free laser gun stands as Bart, yeah, barring a miracle, you're going to get hit and run every single time, and if you get busted, good fucking game, because this time limit, as well as the timer for a lot of the other later missions, are fucking tight. Some vehicles are definitely better than others for getting away from the cops, as well as some vehicles are better for just about anything. Every vehicle has different stats: speed, acceleration, toughness, and handling. Speed is the top speed of the car, acceleration being how fast it takes the car to reach that top speed, toughness being how durable it is and how much damage it deals to other cars upon impact, and handling being, well, how well it handles. Certain vehicles are best fit for certain missions. If you're doing a mission where you have to destroy a car, it might be better to use a tankier car like the Plow King or the school bus. If you have to race, follow, or evade a car, it may be best to use a faster car. For some missions, you may have to find a balance between multiple attributes. The bonus mission at level 5 has you tasked with destroying a car, but this car is also incredibly fast, so if you decide to use a tanky car, you're just not going to catch up to it, plain and simple. So you gotta choose a car that can keep up while also doing enough damage to destroy it. Some cars are also just inexplicably janky, like Cletus's pickup truck or the Canyonero. The Canyonero on paper is one of the best cars in the game, but a decent amount of the time it'll just inexplicably flip over, and that's just the vehicles. I don't really have as much to say about the on-foot controls because there simply isn't as much to it as there are to the vehicles, which makes sense because you're mostly in vehicles in this game. The basic ground control is fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not something I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops about. When on foot, you can jump, double jump, kick, and ground pound after you double jump. The jump works as it should, and the double jump can be very useful in situations where you need to platform, helping you make jumps that you otherwise couldn't. Kicking and ground pounding sees literally no use in any missions and is only used to destroy wasp cameras and crates, which I will get to the importance of later, but for now, back to the story. Bart goes to Comic Book Guy in hopes of getting his hands on the game, however, he has no luck. But he is told that Professor Frink had bought a bunch of copies of the game, so Bart goes to talk to Professor Frink, only to find out that he bought these copies of the game because he needs them in order to power his new robot, the Truckosaurus. Bart says, fuck video games, Truckosaurus is the wave. Frink tells Bart that he needs more parts, and the rest of level 2 is just Bart helping Professor Frink complete the Truckosaurus. Bart collects the remaining parts needed, those being a radio, a satellite dish, and a blender, and then he destroys a bunch of cell phone cars as to not interfere with the Truckosaurus' signal. Truckosaurus is now complete, and yeah, guess what? It's fucking dangerous. So, Bart gets the fuck out of there only to disappear in a bright green mist. And this is where the story really starts. But for now, it's the end of level 2. You're then taken to level 3 where you take control of Lisa in the harbor area where she's on a mission to find her lost brother. This area's gotta be my favorite out of the ones that the game has to offer. The game, as I said before, brings you across 3 different parts of Springfield, each map having its own feel and is very unique as there are plenty of different landmarks in each map. Level 1 has the Simpsons house, the Quickie Mart, and the power plant. Level 3 has the harbor front, the observatory, and Krusty Lou Studios. The area in level 2 is probably the least interesting out of the 3, which really speaks volumes as to how good the other 2 are because that map itself is still really good. Not to mention, the visuals just look authentic to the world of The Simpsons. Bringing 2D animated characters like The Simpsons into 3D was always going to be difficult because no matter how you decide to go about it, the end result is probably going to look weird in some way. I'd say that a pretty good job was done bringing these characters into 3D. Both the in-game and CG models look pretty good, especially considering how the models looked in Radical's previous Simpsons game, The Simpsons Road Rage. Something you also got to keep in mind is that this game was released back in 2003, so the technical capabilities weren't quite there to make the perfect models for these characters, and I think that they did a good job regardless. The game also just generally looks pretty good. There are a few low-res textures that stand out here and there, but it doesn't really bother me too much. Originally, Radical Entertainment planned on the game taking place in one big map, however, since the PlayStation 2 wasn't quite able to load the whole thing, they had to split it up into multiple maps, and yeah, while I think I would have maybe preferred one larger map, I can't say that what's already here isn't really good. I think that you could also argue that this approach is actually better because it slices up the variety more than one map would have. You don't really spend too much time in the same map regardless, and on top of that, you have 2 levels before going back to it. I can definitely see a world where making one large Springfield map could end up getting stale at some point. Another thing is that the game naturally takes you all across the map anyway, so you're very rarely going to be staying in the same spot of the map for a while. Like while Lisa's looking for Bart, she starts by going into Android's dungeon to talk to Comic Book Guy, which takes her down to the pier, back up to the arcade where Comic Book Guy says he saw Bart, in which she talks to Milhouse, who basically leads Lisa damn near across the whole map, ending up with her at the Springfield sign, to which Lisa concludes that maybe Apu has seen him since he always hangs out at the Quickie Mart. After helping Apu collect the roadkill that Bart helped Cletus get in level 2, Apu says that Professor Frink may know where Bart is, which would make a lot of sense since he was working with Bart to collect parts for Truckosaurus back in level 2. Despite how smart he is, Professor Frink unfortunately does not know where Bart is, since, well, I'm not sure tracking someone after they disappear in a bright green mist is an easy thing to do. So after asking 4 people who don't know where Bart is, Lisa decides to ask someone who doesn't even know where he is, Grandpa Simpson, who says that he saw Bart's hat fall out of a black sedan. So of course, Lisa decides to take the logical route, which is to purchase a school bus from Otto and fucking blow up the black sedan. Now, Bart wasn't even in there to begin with, but if he was, then Lisa would have been sitting in a courtroom on trial for first-degree murder. She also destroyed 3 sedans in this mission, and I have no idea where the other 2 came from. Lisa then does something that probably should have been the first thing she did, and that being Go to the fucking police? Anyways, Wiggum tells Lisa that first she has to help him collect evidence in order to bust Snake on the 3 strikes law, and after that is done, he points Lisa towards the docks as there's been a lot of mysterious government types around there, so maybe she could find someone around there. Lisa then asks the sea captain if he's seen anything weird, and he says that maybe if she helps him with something, it may jog his memory. This something being that Lisa has to collect a bunch of fish from across Springfield so that they can be delivered to restaurants around town. After completing what is probably the hardest mission of the first half of the game, Lisa delivers the fish back to the sea captain, to which he finally tells her that he indeed did see Bart. He says Bart was in a long black limo, to where Lisa decides the best course of action is to fucking destroy the damn thing. That is not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 times that Lisa decided that the most optimal way to find her brother in a car was to destroy the vehicle that she thought Bart was in. Don't drive on the same roads as Lisa, otherwise you're putting your life at risk. Turns out Bart got out of the limo and he actually boarded the ship. So Lisa destroyed a limo for no reason in addition to 3 black sedans. Awesome. Anyways, Lisa boards the ship and finally she has found Bart. However, he's talking like someone trying to explain why Sonic Adventure 2 is a bad game. Enter level 4. You're now playing as Marge, and you're back in the suburbs of Springfield trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. In addition to Bart's brain turning to mush, there's a lot of weird activity going on around Springfield. The WASP cameras, mysterious black cars, crop circles, so maybe it's all connected and maybe the cops know something about what's going on. So when Marge goes to talk to Chief Wiggum, he says that he can't help her because he needs donuts. So Marge takes a logical approach and decides to ram into the donut truck and collect a bunch of donuts that fall out of it. Marge is then told by Wiggum that the crop circle is over by Cletus' shack, so maybe Cletus can tell her something. Marge goes to talk to Cletus only for him to think that Marge is a tourist from New York who's trying to take pictures, so he decides to run away. Yeah, Marge was right.
The whole town's gone nuts.
Marge finally catches Cletus, and he says that he's not helping Marge unless she helps him collect a ketchup package from around Springfield. Marge is clearly onto something here, because once they collect all the ketchup packets, they end up getting chased by a black sedan, which they eventually lose. Cletus then tells Marge that she should ask someone around the graveyard to see if they know something about what's going on. Now, I feel like we're at the point of the game where we've seen enough characters to the point where we can finally talk about how on point this game feels. Between the actual plot lines and especially the dialogue, this feels exactly like it would be straight out of an episode of The Simpsons. For a very long time, I just sort of assumed that since this game had all the official Simpsons voice actors, that the official writer for the show wrote the game as well. However, this actually isn't the case. This game was actually written by Chris Mitchell, who was a game designer at Radical Entertainment. It's really impressive that it feels this authentic to the show. I was genuinely shocked when I found out that the official Simpsons writer didn't write this game. Every character feels like they were ripped straight out of the show. I have to wonder though how much this game's charm has to do with how much I enjoy it and how a lot of other people seem to enjoy it as well. Critically, this game scored pretty well, pretty much across the board, and people still hold this game in very high regard to this very day. It definitely plays a part, no doubt, but I think that this game is just well designed and fun enough to the point where if you slap some original characters and other original assets on this game, it would still be a really enjoyable experience. Another thing that really helps hammer this home that this is indeed a Simpsons game are the countless environments from the show itself. Of course, we don't have a true map of Springfield to show where everything is, but it truly feels like this is Springfield. Helped out by the fact that there are numerous iconic landmarks such as the Simpsons house, the Quickie Mart, the power plant, Mr. Burns' mansion, Lard Lad Donuts, the statue of Jebediah Springfield, Moe's Tavern, Krusty Lou Studios, the Duff Brewery. There are also a slew of different characters you can find around the map. You talk to countless characters during the story like the Simpsons family, Apu, Ned Flanders, Mr. Burns, Carl and Lenny, Millhouse, the Bullies, Principal Skinner, Chief Wiggum, Snake, Moe, Professor Frink, Comic Book Guy, Cletus, the list goes on and on. On top of that, there are countless gags where you hear another character, like this one where you hear Flanders' kids. And you can also just find characters out and about and have them deliver a line of dialogue like Ralph Wiggum or Barney. Even characters like Hans Moleman get an appearance in the game. He makes an appearance when Marge goes to the graveyard where he tells Marge that she should go talk to Grandpa Simpson as he seems to know a lot about crop circles. But when Marge races over there, she finds out that Grandpa's meds were stolen and apparently not having his pills completely deprive him of the ability to speak English.
You done darn ricket in crop circles and begging agri-leave.
Oh dear.
So when Marge retrieves the meds and gives them to him, he falls asleep. So she needs to get some more pills in order to wake him up. Grandpa then explains that the crop circle looked like a planet with a radio antenna coming off the top of it, which should sound familiar because that is the logo for Buzz Cola. Marge ends up showing it to Bart, which makes him snap back to reality and tell Marge that the Buzz Cola is actually a mind control cola created by the aliens in order to make the residents of Springfield go crazy. Marge then collects a bunch of the cola cans in order to get them off the street, and then tells Apu what the side effects of the cola are since, you know, he's kind of selling it in his store, and then she declares that she's going to go after the distributors, meaning that she is going to literally destroy 3 cola trucks. Okay, listen. What is with this family's destructive tendencies, especially the girls? I mean, good God, what is Maggie gonna grow up to be? Anyways, now Apu is trying to figure out where the cola is coming from. He's got a connection with whoever's distributing it, however, he can't figure out who's actually creating it. Apu uses an invoice he received to track the location of one of the trucks, which he then decides to follow to try and find the source. The truck leads him to the Mafia, which then leads him to try and find a criminal. Krusty then tells him that he needs to follow a cop until he finds a real criminal.
You'll have better luck if you know, look American.
Thank you, horrible man.
So Apu follows Chief Wiggum to the DMV, where Apu comes across Snake. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for a difficulty spike? Because holy shit, this part of the game ramps up the difficulty like crazy. This mission might be the hardest mission in the whole game. If not, it's the second hardest mission. The first 3 levels were really tame in terms of difficulty. Level 4 increased it a little bit, but it was definitely a noticeable increase. Then level 5's difficulty comes busting in like the fucking Kool-Aid Man. Another contender for hardest mission in the game is a mission at level 6 where you have to destroy a bunch of free laser gun stands as Bart. This mission has a time limit tighter than my asshole gets while trying to play it. There are a few missions towards the end of the game that are ball-bustingly hard. However, there are a few, emphasis on a few, missions in the early part of the game that can be pretty difficult, like the mission where you have to collect the fish as Lisa. Basically, what I'm getting at here is that the game has a very steep difficulty curve when you get to level 5, as the first 3 levels are pretty tame for the most part. Level 4 has a noticeable increase in difficulty, but still not all that bad, then level 5 onwards is just fucked compared to everything that came before. Now this sounds like something I could very easily get pissed off at, however, I'm not. I absolutely love the difficulty increase. But anyways, another thing about this game's missions that is frequently criticized is that this game's missions can become extremely repetitive. And I can see where this one comes from because considering how many missions are in the game, there aren't that many mission types. The game has 49 missions and 56 if you include the bonus missions, and with there being just 6 different types of missions, some people tend to say that it gets stale by the time you're near the end of the game, even if these 6 aspects are often mixed together in some way or another for most of the time. This isn't really something that bothers me because I just simply find the missions fun to play. Not a very convincing argument, I know, but I'm not going to knock a certain part of the game for being repetitive if I just don't really feel that way. I'm just looking to have fun when I play video games, and I feel that throughout the whole game, no matter how many times I may have played this type of mission before. Even when I'm playing the most difficult missions in the game, like the aforementioned mission with Snake, I feel a rush to complete the mission under the strict time limit. I think the challenge is fun, what can I say? Some more good fun can be found in this game if you decide to go for the 100% run of the game. I'm usually not someone who goes out of my way to 100% games. I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 is my favorite video game of all time, and I've never even tried to 100% that game. Regardless, 100%ing the Simpsons Hit Run is not something you have to go very far out of your way to do anyways. In order to 100% the game, you need to complete all the story missions, bonus missions, buy all the character clothing and vehicles, complete all the street races, collect all the collector cards, destroy all the wasp cameras, and activate all the level gags. Now admittedly that seems like a lot and it sounds like it may be tedious to do, but it really isn't. I try to 100% this game every single time I play it since I just find it really fun finding all the collectibles and simply doing all there is to do in this game. I find exploring for all the wasp cameras to be really fun, the street races to be exhilarating, especially the ones later in the game, and I love the novelty of having all the character clothing, vehicles, and collector cards that all pay homage to the show. My absolute favorite is playing through level 6 with the Bartman costume. Like, yeah, Bartman is here to save the day. Best superhero if you ask me. Each character outfit is a reference to some episode of the show, like Evil Homer, Bartman, or Officer Marge. As I stated near the beginning of the video, I couldn't tell you where a good chunk of these character clothes come from, or even the vehicles for that matter, but even then, I'm able to recognize some of them and I think that's really awesome. I learned where some of these come from after seeing them in the game for the first time, and that doesn't take away the novelty of it either. I think it's really cool to see that the developers, above all else, were massive fans of the show and crafted this game with such love and passion. In the case of collector cards, if you go into the pause menu, you can see all the ones you've collected, and selecting a specific collector card will allow you to see the context of the card itself. Again, I just absolutely adore the passion that went into this game and paying homage to the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting to approach the end game of the Simpsons Hit Run. After collecting all of the garbage, Snake sends Apu into the DMV to get a folder containing everything he's going to know in order to find the source of the cola. However, when Apu goes in to get the folder, it turns out to be completely empty. So in order to get the information out of Snake, Apu has to help him with one more thing, and that is destroying an armored truck, and oh boy, this mission can take a while. But after all that is done, and the two get back to Snake's hideout after evading the police, Snake finally tells Apu that the cola trucks are registered to the museum, to where Apu then recruits Bart to rush to the museum and find out what's going on. After destroying the curator's car and getting the museum key, Apu and Bart go into the museum, and after nearly getting killed by a cola-fueled dinosaur skeleton, they find out that everything that has been going on around Springfield has been the work of the aliens, Kang, and Kodos. They introduce the cola into Springfield to make the citizens start to act crazy so that they could film an intergalactic reality show called Foolish Earthlings. Which brings us to level 6. You're playing as Bart once again, and you're back by the harbor. With Bart and Apu finding out what's going on with the cola, it's time for the two to take action and stop the aliens, until Apu goes chicken shit and bows out.
Up, down, go hot dog, butter my undershirt, blah blah blah.
So now it's up to Bart to find a way to put an end to Kang and Kodos' plan. He figures that the best way to do so is to tell Krusty about what's going on, seeing as he's been endorsing the cola since the beginning of the game and is continuing to do so with events around Springfield. Otto is taking a bus of kids to Krusty Lou's studio, so Bart decides to catch a ride with Otto there. However, when they arrive, he's told by Barney that Krusty's not here at the moment, as he's down at the Squid Port getting ready to do a promotion for Buzz Cola. So, Bart races down there before Krusty's limo can pick him up. Unfortunately, when Bart tells Krusty what's going on, he doesn't buy any of it. So, Bart decides he needs to look for someone really smart to help him prove it to Krusty. So, he decides to follow Professor Frink back to the observatory to help him figure out what's going on. Frink says he's been getting weird transmissions from his radio, and that he's likely intercepted an alien spaceship. The signals that Frink was getting then tell him that they're hiding laser guns in the duff trucks. So Bart knocks a few laser guns out of a truck and then gets another one from the brewery, and now he's all set to show Krusty. He decides to show Principal Skinner the laser gun in hopes that he can help warn people about what's going on. However, Skinner decides to take the bright route of taking the laser gun from Bart, citing that having a laser gun is against school policy, despite the fact that they are nowhere near the school and it is nighttime, so it is nowhere near school hours. So Principal Skinner quite literally has no authority to do what he's doing here. Bart then decides to take the most logical and thought out course of action and decides to blow up Principal Skinner's car. Runs in the family, guys. But after doing that and recollecting his laser gun, he takes it to Krusty as proof, but unfortunately the damage has already been done, as Krusty says he just finished helping set up 3 laser gun stands, which apparently wasn't enough of a red flag for him, but whatever, I guess. Bart's car isn't quite enough for the job, so he buys the supervillain car from Kearney and destroys all the free laser gun stands that Krusty just helped set up in what might be the hardest mission in the whole game. Once that's done, Bart explains to Homer that the aliens have now taken over the Duff Brewery as a means to store their laser guns. And of course, with Homer being Homer, this is where they've crossed the line. So the two race the aliens to the Duff Brewery, where the aliens unveil their plan to all of Springfield.
The lasers were only the beginning. Even now, our all-purpose evil cola is spreading underground through your water supply. It will wake the dead. Zombies will rise from the grave and devour the living.
And our ratings will rise to levels unseen since the heyday of Evening Shade.
Oh man, that sounds cool. I mean, oh no, I hope their plan fails. Who am I kidding? Zombies eating brains? Oh, this is gonna rock!
Enter level 7. You are back in the suburbs of Springfield on Halloween night, and Springfield has been infested with all sorts of monsters, zombies, and ghostly ghouls like it's the music video for Thriller. The monsters are overtaking Springfield, and so it's time for Homer to man up and protect his family. After collecting supplies, and in the process convincing Moe that he should give up his supplies since nobody loves him, Homer talks to Comic Book Guy, who tells him that the black car sitting underneath the alien spaceship is actually a probe for it, and should Homer follow it, he should use a brain-fueled zombie car as to protect him from all the newfound dangers. The alien car leads Homer to the power plant where Professor Frink is. He's here because he was able to determine that the alien's weakness is nuclear waste, which I'm just gonna go out on a limb really quickly here and say that that's not exclusive to the aliens, because I feel like anyone's weakness would be nuclear waste, but now I'm getting sidetracked. The plan is to load his car with nuclear waste and use the tractor beam as a means to send the nuclear waste up to the spaceship and therefore destroy it. After the first one is sent up, it's quite obviously not enough, so Homer's gonna have to find more nuclear waste, which seriously should not be that difficult since you work at the fucking nuclear power plant, but yeah, whatever. Lisa says that he should talk to Mr. Burns, as he has plenty of nuclear waste barrels buried around Springfield. Mr. Burns then gives Homer a map of all the places he buried nuclear waste barrels around Springfield, which, by the way, in these missions, you collect the barrels right at the power plant, so there's really no point for this. But regardless, it's time for Homer to stop the aliens once and for all. He loads his car with a nuclear waste barrel and sends it right up, and then teams up with Snake to do the exact same thing. But the alien spaceship is still standing, so it's time for the father-son duo to take out the aliens once and for all. Homer and Grandpa, using a modified version of the World War II car that you can unlock in level 2, race the alien car to the power plant, load the barrel onto the car, escape the alien car, and drive it under the tractor beam, sending that fourth and final barrel up, blowing up the alien spaceship, causing it to crash, which actually causes Foolish Earthlings to become the #1 show in the galaxy. But more importantly, the threat is destroyed, and the day is saved. Homer is an intergalactic celebrity, ending the Simpsons Hit and Run.
At least our show was a success.
Why did we go to Earth Heaven when we died?
At least we don't have to sit through the stupid video game credits. No!
There's a reason why so many people have fond memories with this game, and I'm not going to act like the Simpsons license isn't a big reason why, but there's also a bunch of other reasons as to why, which I think I've covered most of them in this video. I myself, as I've stated, have had many fond memories with this game, and while I was probably drawn to the game primarily because of the Simpsons license, I was able to find so many other fun qualities within the game that I've described throughout the video. Some people say that this game hasn't aged all that well, and while I can sorta understand where they're coming from, I can't say I agree because I just love this game so much and enjoy everything about it. I truly believe that this game is a masterpiece. It might not have the biggest scope, or the best mechanics, or the most epic game out there, but the way this game comes together, it creates an all-around phenomenal package. And that's just about all I have to say for the Simpsons Hit and Run. I think I've made it pretty clear why this game is so amazing to me and so many other people. But that's all I gotta say, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.